Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode here at Tribal Trades, the daily show coming at you from the great state of Florida. One hell of a drug. And I do want to welcome you to the channel wherever you are tuning in from around the world. Thanks for watching. Yesterday actually, history was made, and today we're going to talk about what is next, a whole bunch more. We're going to unpack exactly what the historic Bitcoin strategic reserve means and what that could look like moving forward. And of course, we'll look at the charts and a bunch of other news. Before we do that, smash the like button. This does help get this channel out to more people, does help support the channel, as does your wonderful comments. Thank you. And those questions that get asked, also, I look to get back to those as soon as I am able to. However, if you'd like more interaction, immediate interaction, engagement with me, you can find me in the Discords. There are links below in the description there, and in the Stocks with Josh Discord there. I've got my own Crown Traders channel in there where I share education, insights, resources, some of my trade setups, and entertainment, because I'm not a financial advisor. This is not financial advice. This is for education and entertainment purposes only. Are you not entertained? Okay. And of course, my own Tribal Trades Discord is there. It's currently, you can't sign up for it as of currently. It's closed, but it will be reopening again this year at some point. You can get on the wait list. There's an email address there to do that. Okay, so let's look at the historic moments that we had. And I like what Quentin said. The strategic Bitcoin reserve is unreal. I agree. If you're upset that the US won't instantly market buy billions of Bitcoin touch grass, additional buys need congressional approval. That's how lawmaking works. This is historic. The US just declared Bitcoin a strategic asset. Stop crying. I would say start buying. Stop crying, start buying. He said stop crying, start understanding there. So of course, Texas got there first, and that's been passed by the Senate. And so I think that's bullish on its own, that they're actually going to be acquiring and buying Bitcoin. What are they, the fifth or sixth largest economy in the world, if it was its own country there? Correct me if I'm wrong. Texans, I want to hear a big shout out. In fact, if we have any Texans in the house, shout out in the comments where you're from in Texas. I've been to quite a few places in Texas, love the Texans and have friends there as well. And of course, there that we have more here, just to look at the key points, that Bitcoin in reserve won't be sold. So while they're not buying Bitcoin necessarily, and we'll get into that in a moment, what that means, they're going to hold the Bitcoin that they have. The altcoins and digital asset stockpile can be sold. So not good news for all those altcoins that were in the stockpile that they have, that they didn't buy but have acquired. Treasury can suggest budget neutral ways of increasing Bitcoin in the reserve, also known as selling those altcoins or gold and buying Bitcoin. So while the strategic reserve doesn't talk about buying Bitcoin, they can acquire Bitcoin in neutral ways. In other ways, they could sell off some gold to buy some Bitcoin. They'd sell off some of those altcoins to buy some Bitcoin. Those people say, oh, you can't buy new Bitcoin. They can, but they've got to do it in such a way where the taxpayer isn't footing the bill for that there is something that they are selling. And, the federal government is looking at selling some buildings, for example, that aren't being used or has very little to no use. So maybe that could be used, for example, to add some Bitcoin. So I think it's very possible that that does happen in the future. And again, as we break it down here, I like these key points. The United States will not sell Bitcoin, strategies for acquiring additional Bitcoin. So they are authorized to develop budget neutral strategies for acquiring additional Bitcoin. The government will not acquire additional assets for the US digital asset stockpile beyond those obtained through forfeiture proceedings. So it looks like those altcoins that they have, they're not going to add to them, but they can sell them. And they'll determine strategies for responsible stewardship, including potential sales from the US digital asset stockpile. So watch out, all those coins that are in the US digital. We thought the government would be holding those or adding to those. It looks like they're possibly more likely to sell those and buy Bitcoin. If you want to interpret it that way, it's saying, hey, we're not going to sell Bitcoin. but we're going to work on strategies for acquiring additional Bitcoin that is budget neutral. And hey, we have this US digital asset stockpile and we can sell that. And so if you interpret it the way I'm interpreting, is it's more than likely that these altcoins get sold to buy more Bitcoin. And then, of course, it says there's more to come. So what's next? David Sachs says Trump's announcement of crypto strategic reserve consisting of Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies is consistent with his executive orders from his first week of office. More to come at the summit. More to come at the summit. What could possibly be more to come at the summit there? This will be very interesting to see what is going to come at the summit. I'll be surprised if it isn't announced that there's not some kind of tax exemptions for made in the USA coins. Also, there was news possibly that there would be circulating that tomorrow will announce that taxes can be paid in Bitcoin, and the person paying the taxes will face 0% capital gain on those payments. So in other words, you could take your Bitcoin profits, use those to pay for your taxes and not realize a capital gain. So that's something else as well. And of course, we've got those tax exempt for the USA, but they said that there's more to come. More to come. What will be that more to come? But you do see other leaders chiming in saying historic moment, and they think many of the G2 other countries will eventually follow America's leadership there. And so you can see there's the moment that it was all signed in and made official. There's where it was made official for Texas. Sorry, I got it wrong. I know all those Texans there. I did give you fifth and sixth, but apparently it's the 8th biggest economy in the world. That's pretty amazing. This would be like Italy, France, or India establishing a Bitcoin reserve, apparently. 2 big pieces of news there. Absolutely fantastic. So let's look at the Bitcoin price here and see. So yesterday in the Discord, somebody asked me what they felt the floor was for in this current dump. And I said it would be the 200 EMA on the daily. And that's exactly what happened, because we know the 200 EMA on the daily has historically been a great place to accumulate Bitcoin in a bull run. And what we do see, the only concern that I have here, obviously we kind of broke through here. We stayed on a little bit, came back up, and then 1, 2, 3, 4 hits there. And usually once we see kind of 5, 6, 7 hits, we will break through. And you know, this is still a danger to come down to this 200-day moving average, particularly if today ends up being a buy the rumor and sell the news event. Well, but because you saw what happened last night. You know, Bitcoin, what happened? Buy the rumor and sell the news. And so we had a situation where finally the Bitcoin strategic reserve got signed into law. Now, sure, there wasn't a commitment to spend X amount of money, but I think it was very bullish and the price sold off. And so yesterday we saw Sui get a partnership with World Liberty Financial. It boomed up to $3 and then it sold off. Last Sunday we saw where Cardano and XRP and Solana were mentioned as some kind of assets that were going to be, I don't know what they're going to do with those assets. Everybody thought that would maybe, you know, we don't know. We'll find out today what's going to happen with those assets. But that got sold off the very next day, or that night it sold off, and those moves were completely retraced. And so even some of these bullish news, we're getting those pumps, and then we're getting a bit of a sell-off there. So it will be interesting to see what happens with that today. Do you think it'll be a buy the rumor, sell the news? Make sure to set your stop losses on any positions that you have. And secondly, maybe have some cheeky bids in for if price does really drop down heavily after the news, if people feel that it's negative. And even when you see that was a positive thing that I felt for Bitcoin and for cryptocurrency, because if Bitcoin goes up and if Bitcoin is valued by the US government, that will, a rising tide lifts all ships there. So what do we see here? Now, of course, my line in the sand remains, and I've given you some really great levels here. We've got the 50-week moving average, okay, which is sitting around $75,000 at the moment. The 50 MA on the weekly is sitting at about 77. We lose the 50-week moving average. Historically, if we would have multiple closes below that weekly closes, that would indicate that historically the bull market would be over and that we are in a bear market. So that is a very important to look. But we are Look, we haven't even had a close under the 200-day moving average, let alone a close under the 50 EMA and the weekly before we even get down to the 50-week moving average. So that's what we're keeping an eye on. So these remain zones to accumulate Bitcoin at, because historically in a bull run, they have been good zones to accumulate Bitcoin. To give you an example, the 200 EMA on the daily was crossed back in 2023 early on at around about 22,000. It came back, crossed it again around 28. It crossed it again. The last time it touched it again around the 40s and the 50s and the 60s. And then it took off to the moon up to 109,000. Now it's finally come back to test it again at $85,000. Mark my words. Don't come back to me when Bitcoin's setting a new all-time high to say, "Oh, you know, is it too late to jump in? Here was your opportunity." I'm just acquiring it, and I'm going to continue to acquire it at these levels here, at this level here, and obviously when we came down, we almost touched the 50 EMA on the weekly. We didn't quite get there, and of course, now if we go into a bear market, then there are funds there available to purchase at lower. And I do think if we do go to it, somebody asked me if we went from a bear market now and the top was 109,000, where would the bottom be of the bear market? Most likely where it always has been, down here at the 200 weekly moving average, which is currently sitting at around 44,000. Now, of course, this would be a little bit higher. It moves very slowly. Like you can see, a few months ago it was at 41, so it's only moved $3,000 in that time. So potentially it could be up around this area, the mid to high 40s, low 50s, but I'm going to say right now around the 40K area. So I would look to buy around that area. If we were to lose this 50 EMA on the weekly, we could see quite a capitulation down. And of course, we got some stops on the way down there, the 100 EMA on the weekly and the 200 EMA on the weekly there as well. So I'm not putting any fear in anybody, because I don't think the bull market is over. I think we're still in a bull market, and this is why these dips are buying. Of course, what do we want to see from the upside? We want to see the $90,000 level. This is where we got rejected. I said this was the key area right here, the 200 EMA on the weekly time frame. Do we need to move that? Possibly need to move that down a little bit. Looks like it might have come down a little bit. But the 200 EMA on the weekly time frame, this is where we need to get above to get back into the 90,000 to the 100,000 range. Really, ideally, would want to see Bitcoin break back above this on the Sunday close. So we have a weekly close back above and in the range and get back in the range. Remember, I've talked about the different deviations, how we've had deviations above 100K where we went up to 108, we went up to 109. Now we've had deviations below the range. Considering that I think this is still a bull market, we could have a deviation, come back in the range for a bit, come and have another deviation before we take off. Or maybe that's it. Maybe this dip is it, and then we take off. But in reality, the key thing is we got to get above 100K to be able, that's confirmation. We get above 100K, for me, that's we're going to a new all-time high. And so that's a crucial area to break, is get above that 100K, then a new all-time high is on the cards. Until then, we are still ranging around, sitting below the 90 to 100,000 range, currently sitting at 89,200. Okay, so we saw a nice buy the dip opportunity up, but again, how many more times can this be hammered away before it breaks down? And then we come down here and we've already had two goes at the 200-day on the moving average. Let's quickly look at the liquidation heat map, because we're going to follow the yellow brick road. Follow the yellow brick road. We're off to see the wizard, the wonderful Wizard of Oz. And you can see on the 48-hour time frame, the upside 91,000. Let's jump out to the weekly time frame here, and we're going to see there's more to the upside there at 95,000. We jump out to the 1 month time frame, and we're going to see again there's more to the upside, much more to the upside. 95 all the way up to 100,000 there can be taken to the upside. But then it's the 6 month time frame that we could see the downside Again, we looked at this the other day, still sitting around that 74 to 75,000. There are billions and billions of dollars, but there are billions of dollars to the upside as well. Which way will the market maker go? Will there be a final flush out, grabbing the rest of that liquidity, and then going into a bear market, leaving that liquidity behind? What do you think? That's option A? Or are we going to come down, flush out this liquidity, and then go up and take liquidity above, and then bull market is back on, baby? Or, of course, you have to consider that they go down, then up, and then all the way down again, and we're into a bear market there. Love to hear your thoughts on what you think will happen in the market next. And, of course, until the next episode, or until I see you in the Discord, happy trading.